Hi everyone, it's Karen Williams here, and today I'm really excited to be with Sarah Hamilton-Gill. Now, Sarah is the author of this book, Leap into HR Consulting, and she's an entrepreneur, an executive coach, a public speaker, a trainer, and an HR consultant. In March this year, her life changed, her business changed, and she decided to finally get her book written. So today she's going to talk about her journey and what she's learned from doing it. So Sarah, thank you so much for being here today.
Oh, pleasure. Thank you for inviting me. And I think I'm really looking forward to just sharing a little bit about my story, just to prove that it's not always as easy as people think it is, but it is possible to do, definitely.
So let's start by talking about your business journey. What's led you to where you are today?
Well, it's been a fairly long business journey, which I'll only give you the headlines for, because I've been in business for 26 years now. The business has evolved, it's rotated, it's pivoted, whatever you want to use. In 2020, it's the kind of common phrase, isn't it? I pivoted my business. But I think really for me, what happened, like many other business owners in March of this year, was, suddenly the income stream that I had got, which would have been in normal circumstances really robust, suddenly fell off a cliff edge. And I found myself in a situation where my residential boot camp could no longer take place, and a lot of my other services, I then had to think quickly about how I could change it, and pivoted the business to become online at that point.
So I know you've been working on your book for a while, but it was only really beginning of this year where you decided to, to go full pelt into getting it finished, didn't you?
Yeah, I did. I went into an event back in 2018, actually, and it was one of those events where, there are lots of other additional add-ons to the event, and somebody had got this, weekend boot camp, which was all about how to write your book in a weekend. And I thought, oh, you know what? I quite fancy writing a book. And at the time, the subject of the book was never intended to be a business book. It was going to be a kind of almost like a biography.
Okay.
Which was interesting because I did
Yeah,
the
I didn't realise
weekend.
that. So so that's a new one I didn't know.
Yeah. So I've got another title in my head for something, but I think through actually writing this book, I've got the essence of what my story is into the book. So I don't think that need to have the other book is there anymore. So that's interesting in itself. So yeah, I started the journey in 2018, and it was a stop-start journey for well over 12 months, and bursts of activity and then nothing for 6 months at a time until March of this year, really.
So what prompted you to go back to it and actually make it happen rather than, work through it in fits and starts?
Well, there were a few things that happened, really. I think one was about timing. And I could see that the marketplace and the need for the book. I mean, the book is, as you've indicated already, it's called Leap into HR Consulting. So the marketplace was ready to help people to make that transition. So there was a need for a book. There is no other book on the marketplace that is called this. And through the work I do, I know a lot of people need support on that journey. So I knew that it was needed. I also knew that there was a sense of urgency, really, as well. And I think this is really important. Anybody that's thinking of writing a book, is that if you're not careful, and I had this little niggling doubt in the back of my mind that if I didn't write this book, somebody else was going to do it. And it was so important to my business and the core of what I do that I just thought, I've got to get this finished. I've got to do it. And I think it was at that point that I'm not quite sure how I originally came across it, but I came across your first Make It Happen Day, which was all about getting things to move forward. I think that's how I first met you, anyway.
I think it was through a mutual contact.
Yes,
recollection.
indeed.
As many of these things happen, it's just the way it happens, doesn't it, really?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Okay, so tell us a bit about your book, who it's for, how it's going to help them.
So the book is aimed at anybody that's currently in an in-house HR role, whether it's a corporate, charity, or any other sector, but in essence employed, but are really considering wanting to set up their own HR consultancy. And the book takes you through a very structured approach to how you can transition from the corporate world into setting up, and it's the how-to guide of how to successfully move from the corporate world into having your own business. It's very practical, lots of exercises. You probably can't see them terribly well, but you can see it's it's lovely activities in there with downloadable worksheets that go with it as well. So it's a very practical book.
And it takes people through the whole journey, doesn't it? And it answers all the questions that people have when they're making that transition, because I know from my own transition from corporate to becoming a coach back in 2006, it's, you go through a lot of things when you're not only, you're great at your profession, but also you've got to learn the business side of things, which can be quite tough in those early days.
Yeah, absolutely. And, everybody that comes out of the corporate world in my ideal client base, they're brilliant at being HR people. They're the experts in HR, but how they set up a business and how they get new clients and how they actually find out what they want to do is tough, because they don't know how to do that. And there's so many people out there with solutions and services that it almost becomes a really noisy marketplace. So this really focuses on, you don't need to be spending lots of money to set your business up. This is about getting things up and running really quickly and giving you the structure. So yeah, that's why I built it, really.
So going back to the book journey, Sarah, in terms of, you were working on your books, it's 2018, you gave it, 100% attention from March this year. What have you found to be your biggest challenges on that journey of writing it and publishing it, if there were any?
Gosh, challenges. Well, there's a few. I think the first challenge was how I'd actually started to write the book. I'd structured it around this weekend boot camp. And, that kind of got me off the starting blocks. But what I realized pretty soon into this journey, particularly looking at the work that you'd done, is that the structure wasn't right. It didn't flow. It was really, I looked at it and it just didn't flow from one chapter to the next. And it was not, I talk in the book about clarity, and it was the ultimate in unclear. It really wasn't clear at all. So I suppose the challenge for me was, if you're going to start writing a book, is make sure you've got the structure right first before you start narrating what you're going to put in there. And I know you and I had quite a few conversations on our kind of mentoring journey about the structure and the flow, and that was a really big challenge for me.
Any other challenges, or was that, I know that was the main one you struggled with?
I think an interesting challenge actually is things that I think are maybe obvious or too simple. Is remembering that actually people are at the beginning of their journey. They're not 26 years into their journey like I am. And part of me was not wanting to put too much into the book, but also just remembering that some of these initial stages of how you set your business up is really interesting for other people to hear about, and not to discount them because you think that they're too simple or too easy or too obvious. Other challenges? Oh, there are lots of challenges. I think for me, I'm not a natural writer.
Okay.
And so getting what's in my head onto paper was not an easy process for me. But there were lots of tips and techniques that, again, you shared with me and I'd read about in terms of, how you can best capture your thoughts and put it into a book really helped. So I did a combination of writing it, dictating it. I did all sorts of different ways of making it happen.
Yeah, I think a lot of people think that, they go to write a book, and I think they say they think the first thing they need to do is write, but actually there's a lot of things that it's quite important to do beforehand. But also people think they need to write on a keyboard and a computer, but actually, I've had clients who've handwritten, some that have dictated, and it's really finding what works for you in terms of if you're a natural speaker rather than a natural writer. Often dictating it when you have that spark of inspiration is going to be the thing that makes the biggest difference, rather than sitting at a laptop or computer and then forcing it to come through, because that can be quite hard as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And sitting at a desk just didn't do it for me. I mean, I was extremely lucky that when I was doing the majority of my book writing, which was kind of July, August and September, I had the benefit of being in Corfu at the time. And I could dedicate all my time to actually sitting in a really nice environment, writing in the right space. And, you know, and I know everybody can't do that, but it is really important to find the right environment where you can not be disturbed or distracted, but it can flow, and it really did help. Definitely.
So your journey through working with Libertas is you signed up for the Smart Author System originally, and then we worked one-to-one to get you over that end stage. I don't know how else to put it. So how did you find, you know, how did that work for you?
It worked so well. I mean, to be fair, I wish I'd have done that before I'd done anything else. Because I think it's always difficult when you've started one methodology and then you switch to another. I felt like to start with, I felt like I was trying to shoehorn in what I'd got into a structure that was far better than what I'd already got. And I think had I had not started at all and gone through your Smart Author System first, it would have been actually much easier. But the program that I went on, and I followed your modules, I did it in a slightly different way. I did a kind of a bit of a binge watching session, and I watched all 6 modules in one go, and it really worked for me. I know.
Wow,
I know,
that's a huge achievement. That really is a huge achievement.
But it really so worked, because I could really concentrate on all of the structure, the methodology, and it really made a lot of sense. So yeah, I mean, the book wouldn't be as it is without your services and mentorship.
Yeah. And it was great for you to work with the team as well to get your book out there. And what I love about your book, Sarah, is we were just talking just before I pressed the record button, is what Sarah made the decision to go full colour for clients and people who want to order it direct from Sarah, and black and white to sell on Amazon, Barnes and Noble and all the other online bookstores. So yeah, I've got one of the lovely colour versions and it really does bring it alive, doesn't it, when it's in colour? And I know we can't do that for every single book, and obviously there's an inherent cost involved. But you know, it's a real, you know, it's a real chunky book for anyone who's thinking about writing a book. And I think, you know, there's never an ideal length for a book, and I've worked with clients at all sorts of lengths, and I'm guessing this was about 60,000 words, wasn't it, by the time you got to the end? But yeah, it's quite, it's there's a lot of stuff in here, really valuable stuff.
Yeah, and it's really interesting, because when I started writing, I think I'd got to about 30,000 words. And I'd reached that point where I'm thinking, gosh, I'm never going to get to 50,000. And then I got to 50,000, and it started getting to 55 and 60. And I'm thinking, I need to stop really at some point, because it's really quite addictive. You think, well, I'll just put that bit in, and I'll just put that bit in. Before you know it, you're thinking, well, hang on a minute, just stop. You know, there's a point where it becomes too much. But I think, you know, yourself and the team, I mean, Sam, and being able to create my dream of a book that's in my, you know, corporate colors and the look and feel of it. You know, I absolutely love the special edition, and you know, I think everybody that's got it so far, I mean, I think if you only have to look at the Amazon reviews to look at how much they love that version of it. And I suppose it's interesting for me, because the Kindle, for me, the Kindle wouldn't do it with this kind of a book, because it's the physical look and the feel of it. But yeah, it's great that you can have the options with the colour as well.
Well, and the other thing you did in March is that you created the book alongside your 4-part process, but you also launched your boot camp as well, didn't you? So tell us about how that all kind of came at the same time, because your book does basically mirror the boot camp in terms of the content, but obviously when people go on the boot camp with you, they learn from you direct, and you're able to respond to their questions and concerns.
Yeah, so we were running residential boot camps, following the model that's in the book, and then a lot of the content that we're using on the boot camps, we extracted the best elements of that and put it into the book. I mean, everything that we cover on the boot camp isn't in the book, so there are elements in the book, and there's enough in the book for people to get started and get going. And of course they've got access to some downloads as well, which are worksheets that can be downloaded and printed and used on an ongoing basis. But yeah, the boot camps have been great. I mean, that's supported group coaching, helps people go, they typically get the book now. Now the book's here, they get the book and they go, oh yes, I'd quite like to go on the boot camp next. So yeah, it's worked really well in that respect.
Yeah. And how many people have you supported since March through the bootcamp?
Oh, it's over 50 people now.
Wow,
So
it's
yeah,
amazing. Yeah.
so 50 new businesses this year so far, and it's not been the easiest of years to launch, but yeah, all at different stages of their journey in different niches, but really exciting.
Mm. I think it's a really great example, Sarah, of somebody who's really aligned the book to your business. So when you wrote the book and you had to respond to losing your main client overnight. You had to respond by doing something different. But I just love the fact how you've created, you've been running the boot camp, but you've been writing the book at the same time. So the material it's not the same, but it mirrors each other, which has, so from your laugh, it obviously probably has its pros and cons.
Yes. Yeah, and I think one of the things I didn't realise was actually how much content we'd actually got.
Yeah.
So
Wow.
when I was writing the book and thinking about what could we put in there, the fact that we'd already got a lot of these materials for the boot camp was so valuable, because we could just repurpose it and pop it in the book.
Yeah.
And okay, you have to do it in a different way in a book. You have to make sure that everything links and flows and makes sense when you don't have the other background support. But yeah, it certainly made it a lot easier having that content already.
And it's great that you've supported 50 businesses this year to leap into their own HR consulting business.
I know.
So they're very proud of that, I'm sure.
Oh, absolutely. And I love hearing about their stories. And it's not been brilliant for everybody. People are still finding it difficult to get new work as well. But I think 2021, they've got the foundations set up in 2020. So I think 21 will be a good year for a lot of people.
Yeah.
And I don't know whether this will make you laugh, actually, Karen, is that my sister's a physiotherapist, and obviously, of course, I sent her a copy of my book, and she's reading it, and she said, God, this is so useful, not just for HR. She said anybody that's got their own self-employed business, she said she's found it really valuable. So that's interesting as well, really.
Well, I do remember having a conversation, Sarah, about the whole niche side of things, because one of the things that I'm quite hot on is getting people really clear on who their ideal client is. And I know that, with your background in HR for many years and also launching your own HR business, you've got experience here. But we did talk about the fact that this book could be used for anybody leaping into consulting, anyone setting up a business, but you really wanted to niche in that particular area because of the people that you support on a day-to-day basis. But as you say, it could be used for anybody who wants to become self-employed. So
yeah, and it is, and there's more people that are seeing it and looking at it, and yeah, it was great to get the feedback to say, yeah, I could really use that in my business as well. So interesting. I know we had that dialogue about how niche do you go, and I still think it was the right decision to leap into HR consulting, but it's lovely to see other people using it as well.
Yeah. Well, you've kind of got your primary audience, so you've got your person who you're looking at when you're writing it, and you can kind of picture them on the end of your keyboard or in front of you on the screen or as you're dictating it. But then you know that you can impact secondary, tertiary audiences as you write it as well.
Yeah. So yes, that's really exciting. And last week it was really exciting because we've got our first book that's been a special edition book that's gone to America. And completely remote part of America, unbelievable. So it'll be interesting to see what they make of it.
Fantastic. Well, one of the questions I was going to ask you, Sarah, and I know you launched your book, what was it, 5 or 6 weeks ago now. What would you say has been the biggest success you've had so far, or biggest impact that it's made?
Well, I think the key thing with the book, this has really surprised me actually, is how suddenly from being, people knew about me to suddenly like, oh, right, Sarah's the expert in this area. Sarah's the authority. I've had quite a lot of PR in local magazines. I've now become a blogger for an HR directors magazine. Opportunities that I would guess would not have come across, wouldn't have come up had I not got the book. So it's opened up discussions. I mean, again, people have been onto Amazon, they've seen the book, they've contacted me and said, can I come and join you on the boot camp?
Mm-hmm.
So, from that point of view, I do remember the conversation you and I had quite early on saying, Sarah, you'll never become a millionaire on the back of your book. I was like, yeah, okay. But it does actually open up and support the other part of the business, which is about, the boot camps and other programs that I'm running.
Mm. And what difference is that making?
Oh, it just makes life a lot easier. People see the book, they read the book, they love the book, and then they want to move to the next level. So it's almost the book is doing an element of the selling for me that I would have had to have done, had I not got the book to say, well, have a look at the book first.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's the whole thing about a book, isn't it? When it's totally aligned to your business, you're able to leverage it through by telling people, people getting to know you before they have that conversation with you, or even not needing to have a conversation with you and just saying, right, how do I get more of this? Because what I love about the book as well, doing it alongside the online boot camp, is that you've got some success stories in there. So I love that, because you're able to have some real life examples of how people have, taken the content, at the bootcamp level, and also achieved some amazing results as well.
Yeah, and the success stories, I mean, they were quite early on in their journeys, so it'd be interesting to revisit those in 12 months' time as well. But yeah, it's captured lots of things in there for me, which is really good, really good.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. So I'm sensing second edition, or another book. Who knows?
Well, I think there is a second book. I think there is definitely a follow-up book. Question is when.
Well,
probably not next year. I don't
not
think
next year.
year.
No,
I think
no.
2022 maybe.
Okay, I'll keep you to that, Sarah.
Keep me to that one. Yeah, and this time I'll follow the structure from day one rather than going down a different rabbit hole. It'll be a lot easier.
I think it's just finding the way that works for you. And I suppose, I've worked with so many people through this process over the last 6 years. It's just really, everyone finds their own way of doing it. But it does, it's a bit like your boot camp, the way that you, and the book, it does take people from one thing to another. It kind of layers the information. Exactly the same with writing a book. It's about layering the information. So you do step one before you do step two, before you do step three. And it's exactly the same with your book as well, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I didn't realize how important structuring the book was until I went through your program and realized the level of detail that it's not that you have to do it, but it just makes your life easier. If you've got that level of detail and clarity before you start writing, it just makes that journey so much quicker and easier to follow.
As you know, it's harder to do it in retrospect, going back to it, and then having to shoehorn it into a structure, when you've already written quite a lot as well. So
I mean, I'd written 18,000 words before you and I met, which is quite a lot of words, and I'd probably say not many of those words are still in the book.
Okay, that's interesting. Okay. So for people watching this interview, Sarah, and thinking, I really want to write a book, or I've started and I can't get it finished, what tips or advice would you give people that you've learned on your journey that you would give to them?
I think the first thing I would say is stop what you're doing, and I would get to look at the structure that you suggest. You've got to be you've got to know what you're doing, and I think it's very easy, particularly nowadays, it's very easy to say, oh, don't worry, I can do it myself, or I'll give it a go. And I get this a lot when I'm talking to people about the bootcamp. Oh, I'll give it a go and then I'll see how I get on.
Yeah.
It's like, well, yeah, you can give it a go and see how you get on, but how much time and energy are you going to waste when actually, invest in not only yourself, but your business by getting somebody who's the expert to get you from A to B in a quicker way? Because at the end of the day, that's what you want, is you want your book to be a really good quality and you want it published. So why would you, excuse my French, but why would you faff around going around the houses trying to do it yourself when you don't need to?
Any other tips you want to give people? So thank you for that. I absolutely agree.
Tips, I think you've got to put time in your diary on a consistent basis to make it happen. it's so easy. I mean, I did this, you know, before you know it, bang, another 3 months has gone, you've not written anything. And you have to get into the zone. So I think it's really important that you do chunks of time on it.
Mm.
And I found that once I was in the zone, it was flowing really, really easily. But you have to do it consistently.
So what got you into the zone? Was it going away to Corfu? I know because you live part-time in
Yeah.
Corfu and part-time in the UK as well. So was it
Yeah.
going to Corfu, that was your zone, that you kind of dedicated that time for writing?
Absolutely. You know, I sat at the a table at the balcony looking across the water to the, you know, the mainland Greece, and it was absolutely stunning. So,
Oh.
you know, I would occasionally look up to see what was going on, but you know, the fact that it was lovely and warm, it was beautiful, it was in my kind of what I would call my spiritual home. I mean, it was just a great place to, you know, it didn't feel like I was working or writing. It felt like I was in the right place to get everything in the book, really.
So you weren't distracted, because it's popped up on my Facebook memories that 3 years ago I was finishing Book Marketing Made Simple, took myself to Malta for a week, but you know, looking at sort of, you know, my own memories on Facebook, you know, there were times when I was procrastinating because I just wanted to get out into the sunshine.
Do you know what? I know, and I completely agree with you. It would have been so easy just to have kind of closed the laptop down and gone
Yeah.
out. But the beauty of it was that Russell, my partner, was also writing a book at the same time. So he was bless him, he was in the house writing, whereas I was out on the balcony. So the fact that we were both focused on writing books meant there wasn't any pressure to go out and do things. So we would dedicate time where we'd go out and just walk away from the books and do something else. But it really helped having that support as well.
I suppose it's just deciding, you know, it's better to have some really good quality time, knowing that you're going to have a
Yeah.
break at a certain time, rather than try and squeeze everything in, isn't it? So it's about being really strict with yourself, isn't it?
It is, and that's not my forte normally. But when you're working with a team of people with a book and you've got deadlines to hit, you know, working with you, Karen, working with the editor, working with the
Yeah.
designer, I mean, you can't afford for any of those deadlines to slip at all.
No, because you had quite a tight deadline for yourself, didn't you, in terms of getting the book out? Obviously, we did not realise that COVID was going to last quite so long when we
No,
started back in March. So, and I know
I
you
know.
had your own deadlines to meet. So, yeah, you're right. It can't slip if you've got deadlines. It's just because then
No.
you don't meet them and you can't get your book out there.
And I thought unrealistically that getting the book to be published would probably take, you know, a couple of months from, you know, starting it to finishing it to getting on the bookshelves. And the reality was it took a lot longer than that. And partly because of the quality that was involved in wanting to have a book that was good quality and, you know, not doing anything that was second best. And, you know, I'm glad I took the extra time, which was against my better judgment. I really wanted to just get the book out and, you know, sign it off and be done with it. But actually, when I look at it now, I'm really proud that, you know, you know, nobody has said, oh, there's a edit or a problem or a grammatical, or there's, you know, it's been edited to an extremely high standard. It looks fantastic in terms of visually. It's, you know, for visual people like me, in NLP terms, it's like this ticks all the boxes on the visual, and it's my colors, and you know, the quality of it is just amazing. So yeah, you know, it's something I'm really, really proud of.
Thank you. Yeah, absolutely. Because you can do it quickly, but I've learned to my own detriment over the years. If you do something quickly, it doesn't mean you've got something that's good. So absolutely,
Yeah.
I do love it. And in a kinesthetic point of view as well, I'm very kinesthetic.
Yeah.
It just feels nice as
That
well.
cover, I know the cover is amazing, isn't it? The amount of people that I've given the book to, and they go, "Oh, that book is just lovely." It's like, okay.
So Sarah, for people who want to be able to feel it, see it, smell it, how can they get hold of a copy, and how can they find out a bit more about you?
Well, the best thing to do really is to go onto our website, which is leapintoconsulting.com. And everything to do with the journeys on there, the books on there. Yeah, have a look at that. Or if they want to send me an email, it's Sarah with an H, and then it's hg@leapintoconsulting.com.
Brilliant.
and by all means get in touch. And I love being able to talk to people about their journeys and where they're at and where they want to be, really.
Well, I'm delighted to have been part of your journey this year, Sarah. It's been a privilege to work with you, and yeah, congratulations on getting the book done. Have you got anything else you want to add? If not, I'll wrap up and I'll let you go on your way.
No, I think, it has been, although it was hard work, I'm just so pleased and delighted when I've just had another delivery of 50 books just arrive, the special editions, and I can't wait to open them and get them in their special packages and off to people, because, it's not just me. I've actually had people make comments about how they've cried. The parts of the book have been so emotional for people in terms of, touching buttons for them as well, that it's not just an academic book, it's about a story and a journey that a lot of people are going to go on. So yeah,
I'm really pleased that they've got your book to help them. So thank you so much, Sarah.
pleasure, and thank you for all your help.
Thank you.
Thanks, Karen.